Alright, I'm going to show you the basics of Adobe Premiere Pro CC. At the moment I'm running version 12.1.2, so that's the most recent version as of November 2019. While we load that up, I will just say when you do have editing projects in Premiere Pro, it's a good idea to save it in a location where you can later find it, and also to continue to save it regularly in case the program crashes and you lose your work. There's nothing more frustrating than losing hours worth of editing work. Alright, so new project. Alright, give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to call it Adobe 123. Just save that to my desktop. You can change the location here if you select this browse menu here. That will do for me. Settings are fine, and we'll click OK, and that'll open up Adobe Premiere Pro, the editing workspace. You can see indicated in blue we're in editing, and we can flick between different ones depending on what we're doing. And most of the time you're going to be in editing or effects, and sometimes you might want to make some color adjustments, but editing is the main one that we'll be using. So we have our source window here, which is what we use to review our footage before we put it into our timeline. Our timeline here, which is where we construct our clips together to create our movie. And in our top right here, we've got our program window, which is like a preview of what we have together to actually review what we're making. Down the bottom left, we've got a few things. We've got a project where we'll have all of our media in there, a media browser where we can look for stuff, libraries, and we've got effects and things like that as well, which we can have a play with. Now, you can obviously drag things right into here. You can look through the media browser, or you can just double click in there. And I'm going to go into this montage clips here that I've downloaded, and I will import all of those into there. Now these clips, I've just found some stock footage royalty free from a website called Pexels, and that's pexels.com. So if you look on there, it's stock photos and videos. It's all free to use, so have a look at that if you want some free footage just to have a play with. Right. Now, when we start, okay, so when we double click on our footage that we might want to use, we will see it appear here in our source window, and as we move around, we will see different points of that. Now, this footage here doesn't move much; it's just literally just some fog rolling over a mountaintop. This has a bit of sound to it. And obviously there's a video too. So we can, when we're dragging our footage into our timeline, we can drag simply just the video or the audio by itself, or both. Okay. If we want to use a particular part of the footage, we might create what's called an in point, okay, and then what's called an out point here. And the shortcut to this is I and O. So if I press O, it will create an out point, and this will therefore only bring in a certain amount of that footage. We can just click on this picture here and drag it down. That will now create a new sequence, and we'll have the video and audio together. We can see V1, video layer, A1, audio layer, and we have other layers too, V2, V3, A2, A3, and that's if we want to stack multiple things on top of each other, which with more complex editing projects is what we will do. Alright, so just a quick look at the workspace. You can see here on the right hand side the little green audio bars indicating the sound, the volume. I will show you later how to adjust volume. We have the little eye icon, which allows us to toggle the visibility of certain layers depending on how many video layers you have. That can be good for just seeing what other things are behind, perhaps. We have in audio, we have a few different options. We have mute track. So if we want to just listen to what it sounds like without that one track, we can just mute it for a while without actually getting rid of it. We can also solo it, so we just hear that sound, which can be useful. And we have the voiceover record option here too as well. So that allows us to add our own voiceover using the microphone as well. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want this audio, so I'm going to delete the audio. Now we have a bit of an issue because when I try to click on the audio, it selects video and audio together. So what we want to do is we want to unlink that footage so we can just delete one and not the other. So we want to control click. Okay, we want to scroll down and we want to click on unlink. Okay, that allows us to move around each individual layer, the video layer and the audio layer for it. And in this case, I will just select the sound and I will delete that by pressing the delete key. Now there are a few tools on the side here, but the main ones we're really going to use is our selection tool. Okay, the shortcut for that is V, and the razor tool, and the shortcut for that is C. Okay, so we can select that by clicking on it. It's highlighted in blue when we know it's active. So I can just flick between the two by pressing V for selection and C for razor, C for cut, I guess would be the best way to remember that. Now this is the tool you're going to use the most in terms of when you're making fine adjustments to your clips and shortening them. Now you can just click anywhere there and that will create like a slice, I guess, and that way allows us to then delete part of that footage or move it around or whatever. Okay, so we can just delete that. Another way as well is we can just stretch our footage out, okay, or minimize it to cut it that way if we're just cutting from the ends like that. So you might want to just say sort of move it like that and do things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at adding another clip in now. So let's start with this glitter dancing clip. Okay, and that's goes for about 11 seconds. We probably don't need that much. So we'll just start from here, create an endpoint, move to about 5 seconds, create an out point, and we will just drag that down here, and that will automatically snap it in like that. Okay, and we'll now have on our timeline, we've got our glitter dancing and we've got our foggy mountain afterwards. Now you'll notice here in our preview pane that the glitter dancing clip is much smaller. Now obviously it was recorded using different settings on a different camera, and that can be an issue if you are recording on multiple different devices. Say you film on a phone or something and you film on a DSLR camera, it's going to be different. So one quick thing we can do is select this footage, double click on it, and go to Effect Controls, and up here Effect Controls will allow us to adjust a few different things. Now in video effects we have our motion. Okay, so if that's not already open like that, you just click on this drop down menu here, little arrow, and we've got a few things that will come standard with every single clip that we can change: position, scale, rotation, anchor point. The main one's obviously position, scale, and rotation. Now, in terms of scale, if we select that here, you'll see we have now a little blue box around our footage, so we can manually just drag that if we like, and that's one way of doing it. Here you'll notice the scale has gone to 155 now. We can actually manually put in a number if we want. So if I was to put in 200, say, that would change that. Or we can just click and drag to the right and we can get it to what we want, and that will perfectly fit the frame. I'm happy with that. Position, obviously we can move it left or right, so if I drag that, it will move our footage to the right or left if I go the other way, and up and down with this other one here, so that will shift it on your X and Y axes. If I want to reset that, if I made a mistake, just reset parameter here on the side and that will put it back to where it should be. Rotation as well, we'll just spin the footage around. Could be useful maybe if you want to have something upside down or you wanted to have effects, but probably not going to use that one very often, I wouldn't imagine. Alright, I'll reset that. Now one thing I will also mention is I've got my, here in my preview pane, I've got my playback resolution set at 1/8. If yours is at full, it's giving you a full resolution preview of what you're creating, and that can slow your computer down considerably, considering the CPU is working really hard to create that preview. So what we do is if we go to something like 1/4 or 1/8, it puts the resolution quality down, and it just speeds up our preview. So when we're actually trying to watch what we've done, when we press the play button, or if we just press space, it'll just create a nice smoother preview for us. Particularly when we've got lots of layers and effects and it's not rendered and all those things, it's going to be very laggy. So sometimes it's best to just sacrifice a bit of quality there just to see a smoother preview. Also, we can zoom. If we want to see something a bit closer, we can always zoom in here and scroll around to see where we're at. And most times you just want to fit that in. Okay, so as you can see, my computer now is really starting to struggle a little bit. That's okay. All right. So the shortcuts that you really want to probably remember is V and C space. You can also step forward a frame left and right if you're doing really particular edits. If you want to cut at a particular frame or put an effect in a particular frame, that can come in handy. Rather than trying to really get it on the exact spot with your mouse, you can just scroll through frame by frame. That can be effective too. And just while I'm talking about shortcuts, you can also go up the top here and you can find all the shortcuts in there. It's got a list of them, okay? And you can create custom shortcuts if you really want to. Alright, so if you're using Premiere Pro regularly, that's definitely something I'd recommend, getting familiar with the shortcuts. Alright, now one thing as well is transitions. Now we've got two clips, you might want to add a transition between the two. So here on the left window here, our project window, we want to go across and change that to effects. And down here we've got all these different effects, audio effects, audio transitions, video effects, video transitions. I'm just going to select video transitions and we'll just kind of find one that would be suitable. I guess like a cross dissolve in this case maybe. Alright, so if we grab a cross dissolve here and we just drag the transition across and we stick it on, and it will go across both of the two, and you can see it will do that crossfade effect. So as we watch preview, it does that now. It is a bit laggy in our preview, but you can't get the point. Okay. All right. Now let's add in a few other clips. We'll go back to our project window. Let's add in a clock effect. So I'll double click on that. We don't want all of it. This is just footage of the clock. Alright, so we'll add an in point, add an out point. Alright, drag that down, stick it there. Now, if you've got a space like this as well, you can select that empty space, and if you've got lots of clips behind it, you want to kind of have them all to snap in. So we can do what's called a ripple delete, and that will delete that space and all the footage will move across like a ripple effect. So that's why that's called ripple delete. Now here we've got footage of a clock, and as you can see, it is not playing for me. That's okay, we'll just give it time and it will hopefully work for us. What we might do is we might just render that so it will work a bit more effectively. So if we go up to sequence, render into out, and you'll notice here this yellow line delineates the fact that this footage is not rendered. So if we render into out, that will just render all our sequence for us, which will allow for a better playback experience. That might take a minute or so, and that might just allow us to see a bit more clearly what we're working with. Okay, that's rendered now, and as you can see, we've got our transition to our foggy mountains, we've got our clock ticking, and that goes on for probably a bit too long, I would say. So I'm going to speed up that clock so it ticks a bit faster. You can see we've got a green line up here which indicates that the footage, the sequence is rendered. I'm just going to control click on our clock footage here, and we're going to go down to speed duration, and I'm just going to speed that up to 300%, so it'll be 3 times as fast. And the foggy mountain as well, I'm going to make that a bit faster too. So we're going to speed and duration, I'm going to make that twice as fast, just for a bit more. Alright, and then we can drag that across, or like I said, control click, ripple delete, that'll snap that in for us. Okay. Okay. Now let's add in some sound. So in a folder here I've got some sound. Within this folder we've got some epic cinematic. So let's have a look at, I'll just use this 32-second cut of it. Now this is royalty free as well, so this is free to use. Okay, so we'll drag the audio down, drop it here in the audio layer. Now, if we want to adjust the volume particularly, we can move this line here. Now, to actually see in more depth what we're dealing with, if we actually scroll over the layer, we can make it bigger. If we hold down the Option key, the Alt or Option key, and scroll, it will expand that layer, and we can see this line here will adjust the volume. So if I'm playing that, we'll see here. Notice it was peaking way too high because of the volume. You never want the volume to peak into that red zone there. So we'll just drop that down, and if we go down nice and quiet, we'll see the difference it makes with the volume. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you another thing too, how to gradually change your volume at different points using keyframing. So what we want to do with our keyframing is we want to hold down our Command key, and we can add a little keyframe in there, Command and click, and we'll create a keyframe. Add in another one there, and if we actually move this down like so, we'll see that our volume will slowly rise at this point here. Okay, so we could actually make another keyframe, we could make it louder here. Alright, and then towards the end of the clip, we might want to actually start to fade that away. Okay, so that's a good way of actually manually changing different points of your audio, and looking at the footage. You might want, certain scenes to be louder than others. So we'll just listen to that. Okay, it starts off quiet. Okay, and it goes down. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now you can see if we scroll across, our footage goes all the way to there. If we actually want to see it bigger or smaller in terms of that, we can expand it like that, or we can go the other way. So if we use this little bar down the bottom, so I could slice that, or I could just drag that down here to sort of match like so. Okay. All right. I'll also show you how to adjust color. So if we select on the clock here, now I'm just going to mute that audio because it's starting to annoy me. If we select on this clock here and go to the color menu, it will open up our Lumetri color, and there's a few different things we can do with our Lumetri color. We've got our basic correction, we've got our adjustments. If we scroll down, we've got a few other things as well. Now adjustments, we've also got some looks here, so we can create some different like filter looks. We select that, so a noir kind of look, which is kind of cool, I guess, or an orangey kind of glow. So you know that's the kind of filter kind of thing, and then you've got different sort of film processing things. We'll just get rid of that. We'll click on none. We can actually adjust the vibrance of the image, the saturation. So we could drop the saturation down to have it black and white, or boost it up, make it more vibrant. We've got different colors here. So if we click on there, colors, okay, HSL, curves, basic correction. Now this input LUT. Now LUT is basically a filter in terms of filmmaking. They just call them LUTs. So there's some more there that we can add in as well. So we can do that, and we can actually here with our basic correction, we can change our exposure, our contrast, highlights, etc. So we'll just get rid of our LUT there. Now the temperature, we can make it warmer, we can make it cooler. Okay, we can make it tinted to a more purpley color or green color or whatnot. Exposure, if we've got an overexposed image or an underexposed image, we can change our exposure, our contrast, highlights, shadows. So if you look at the shadow there under the clock, okay, we can try to get rid of that a bit. You can see that's kind of adjusting that whites, blacks, etc. So that's how we adjust our color. All right, moving back to our editing. Now I'll also show you how we can adjust the entire sequence using an adjustment layer. Now if we actually go to our project window and control click, we're actually going to go new item, adjustment layer, okay, and we'll click OK there. Now I'm actually going to put that adjustment layer on top of all of our footage, and I'm actually going to drag that all the way across here. And now that I have that across all of our footage, any adjustment I make to this will affect all of our footage. So that way I don't have to individually edit every single clip there. So that'll just make our life a lot easier when we want like an overall kind of look. So if I select my adjustment layer here, we'll go back to color, for example, and let's say I want to add a vignette to all of our footage. I will just add a vignette effect to our adjustment layer, and it will apply across all three of those clips there. So let's go down to vignette, select that, and we'll move the amount across. Okay, go left to get a nice vignette on the sides there. Okay, and we will now see as we move across, we have a vignette on all of our footage. Okay, now my computer is struggling to keep up with the amount of changes I'm making, but it's there, you can see the vignette. Okay, all right, back to our editing. Now, another thing we can do as well is keyframing an effect. So let's say we want to edit this clip here, our clock, we click on Effect Controls. Okay, let's say our opacity is something we want to edit. So if we click on opacity here, right, we can edit the opacity down or up. And if we actually go to the end of our clip here, we can click on the stopwatch here for keyframing, which is selected, and we can drop our opacity down to say 0. Now that will create a keyframe there. Okay, move that to there. Okay, add another keyframe, and you'll see it should move from 100 down. You can see it moving down to 0. So that's a good way of, and we'll see our keyframes here on the side there. As we watch it, will slowly go fade to black. So that's another way we can create manual transitions through opacity. Any effect we want to use, we can do that. Let's say we wanted to create a bit of a blur effect. We could go to Effects, and we have all our video effects here, and we've got our blur and sharpen. So let's say we want to add like a Gaussian blur. Okay, now if we double click on that, it'll add a Gaussian blur effect here in our effect controls. You can also click and drag it onto the footage that we want. But let's say we start about here with a Gaussian blur. Okay, add a keyframe point to that. Now we'll just add a point there, and then as we get to the end of that footage, we'll just move our blurriness up to 100, why not, 105, okay? So that's created another keyframe there because we've made an adjustment, and as we watch our footage back, we'll notice that it will start to blur. Okay. Let's try again and see if it actually will show us in our preview. Okay, it's not showing in the preview, but that will do that. All right. Now, lastly, we'll look at some titles and how to create titles. So, what we'll do is we'll go to File, New, Legacy Title, and I'm going to call this Time. Why not? Seems to be the theme of what's happening here. Okay, this is our title window. We've got a few different things we can do. Our alignment, okay, our shapes, the direction of the text. Now if I just click in here, I can start typing, and I'm going to write what I want to appear on the screen. I'll start typing in time, okay, and if we select that, just like you would in any word processing program, we can change the font and the size and things. So font size, if I just click and drag that, will make it nice and bigger. We can change the type of font. Alright, so choose one that you like the look of. Okay, I'll just make this a bit bigger. Time. Okay, we can try and change the color, whatnot. In terms of our alignment, we can click on the center here to have it in the center, right in the middle. Okay, vertically or horizontally if we want to get it perfectly aligned. Obviously, the box should be the same size as the font if you want it perfectly aligned, I guess. Okay, all right, time. Now, I might just choose a different color for that. So we'll click on our color menu here, and we'll change that to red. And I'll just drag that down to the side. Okay. When you're happy with that, just nice and in the corner there. When you're happy with that, you can just close that. All right, and we've got here in our, go back to our editing menu. We've got here in our project menu here, we've got our title will appear here. So we can just click and drag that. And if we want that on top of something, we can put it like so. Okay, so that'll just appear there. And I might just extend our music to fit the entire sequence. Okay, when we're happy with that, we want to actually export that into a video format so we can play it back and share it with other people. So File, Export, Media, and that will open our export window with all of our settings. Now H.264 is the format that we're going to be using, so don't worry about changing that. There's obviously lots of different types of files we can use. Now there's different presets depending on what quality you want. If we just do match source high bitrate, that will give us the best possible settings and try to match it. Now here on output name, if we actually click on here, now its default name is called Foggy Mountain because that's one of the clips that I used. We're actually just going to click on that and I'm going to call it time, and I'm going to save that to my desktop, and that will create our MP4 file on the desktop. Okay, and we want to use maximum render quality. Okay, and we'll then click export. So we'll leave that to export. Could take a couple of minutes. We'll let that go, and then we'll have a look at the final result. Okay, so that's done exporting. So we'll just close Adobe Premiere Pro now because we're done with that. I'll just save our changes. Now that will save the project. Keep in mind, if you want to go back and edit that project, you've got your project file, which is a PRPROJ file. That doesn't include the video clips as well. So if you actually want to go back and edit that, you'll need to make sure you don't delete the videos itself. Okay. Now let's have a look at our final result. We'll open up our video here. Okay, so that's the basics of Adobe Premiere Pro. So have a play with it. There's plenty more effects and lots of fun things you can do in there. The possibilities are endless.